Glyphid exploders and their cousins are, in my opinion, some of the most feared bugs in Oxys and in Deep Rock Galactic, the game itself. What I mean by this is every dwarf, no matter how experienced they may be, when we hear the call of a detonator, our heads turn. The nuclearly explosive Glyphid bulk detonator is horrendous. Let's go through all of them, and then we'll talk about theories, what we could expect in the future. Currently, there are 5 variants of the exploder in Deep Rock Galactic, 4 of which can be found in the bestiary, and 1 of which is somewhat lucrative. Firstly, we have the simple Glyphid exploder. It is the self-combustion enemy in the game. It'll rush at you, and if it gets close enough, it'll explode. If you shoot it in the wrong spot, it'll explode. Now, you are able to shoot the exploders in the head, where their teeth are, and they will not explode. What this to me entails is that these exploders know they are going to explode, that their brain somehow tells themselves to combust. The Glyphid exploder is known, as I was saying earlier, to rush at you and then explode. They are almost always found in groups, rarely ever on their own. I think because they understand that because they are so small and their explosions are not as powerful as their significantly larger brethren, that they need the numbers to actually take down a dwarf, take down whatever threat they need. Their explosions are particularly violent when compared to other attacks in Deep Rock Galactic. We have the acid spitters, for example, who, for most cases, they seem to be able to spit their acid without harming themselves. Same thing as the menace. Other bugs with their melee attacks, their bites. They don't really ever harm themselves. The exploders are different, which to me means that these exploders are made with the sole purpose of dying. That's scary. I don't know of any real-life examples of animals that do this, where they are bred specifically to die. There are some that, throughout their natural course of life, will die, such as some spiders will eat their mates to feed their young, but this is a very different kind. Seems to be very offensive, the self-combustion. It's weird and very scary. So while the Glyphid exploders, the smallest, the simplest of the Glyphid exploder variants, are scary in their own right, I believe exploders themselves should be feared for other reasons. They seem to be able to mutate in ways that others cannot. With the exception of the Praetorian, the exploder is the only one that has been able to mutate with the radioactiveness of the radioactive exclusion zone. The radioactive exploders, the same as the other brethren, can still be prevented from exploding if you destroy their head. They leave behind a field of radioactive vapor and are definitely a lot more frightening, I think, than their traditional flaming brethren. In the same way where I think most dwarves are going to be more scared of a radioactive Praetorian as opposed to a standard Praetorian because of that radioactive vapors left behind. The radioactive exploder, while it doesn't do any more damage on its explosion, it is more deadly because it leaves behind that field. The bulk detonator is our next mutation. It's our next variant of the exploders. And I say this because that's all these are. While exploders, as I said before, are bred to die, they are bred to explode. They are bred to die violently in an explosion, be killed some way. sometimes they stay alive, and that's what a bulk detonator is. It is nothing more than an exploder that lived a lot longer than it should. So while this means we could, in the future, see things larger than the bulk detonator, I think there is no reason to assume that it will be anything we see soon. As opposed to regularly somewhat small, admittedly, explosions of the glyph exploders, the bulk detonators, when killed, release an explosion that, according to the in-game miner's manual, is on the kiloton scale. That's a lot of explosive power behind this thing. As well, the bulk detonators seem to be able to control themselves, self-combust, without dying, which is very interesting, I think. If you get too close to one, it'll pound on the ground and it'll explode. It's scary. I don't understand how it's able to do this without self-combusting. I would assume that whatever causes it to self-combust in the first place maybe has duplicated in time, or just grown to a point where it's able to explode and then also stay together somehow, but it's very scary. While there isn't a radioactive version of the bulk detonator, I think that is the most likely thing that we see in the future, a radioactive bulk detonator. Doesn't seem to be anything we're going to be seeing soon, but like I said, that's the most likely. We do have the Crassus Detonator, which I think is a very interesting mutation. While the radioactive exploder seems to have just mutated, I guess evolved would be a better example. The Crassus Detonator is a mutation. It is mutated with the gold around it. I don't know how this happens. There's no information on it in the game, but instead of it being a purely natural beast, it now is made of gold. It has a hard outer shell, and while we can't see the innards of a bulk detonator or a Crassus detonator, we can see that it does have soft fleshy bits where its head is, and then on its underbelly and its arms as well, they have fleshy parts. So it seems to me that whatever caused this mutation is very smart. And I think in the future it's possible that we see different variants of Crassus Detonator. It's very possible we get Nitro Detonators, Morkite Detonators, etc. Whichever one would be the scariest, I'm unsure. I know every dwarf, when they see a Crassus Detonator over a bulk, gets a little bit happy, until you realize that you still have to mine up all the gold. Interesting to me that Crassus Detonator, when it explodes, it creates a perfect sphere around it of gold. Now, I know it's a gameplay mechanic that doesn't really showcase anything too important, but the fact that it leaves behind the gold is very interesting. To me, that means that with further mutations of the bulk detonator, we could see things that are left behind, such as I said before, radiation, nitra, morkite, etc. But there's no telling what kind of mutations we could get in the future. So that's 4. Well, where's this 5th one? Well, a lot of people may know that in Deep Rock Galactic we have anomalies and warnings. One of the warnings in the game is called Haunted Cave. And I quote, "A slow but invulnerable and deadly creature has been detected in the area. It will relentlessly chase you throughout the mission. Do not let it get close." Somehow, this ghost is of a bulk detonator. It will chase down the dwarves and continuously explode around them, being completely impervious to any fire because it is a ghost. Our bullets go right through it. We're unable to shoot it, unable to see it properly. And the ghost is terrifying. I've already discussed how the glyphid exploders seem to be able to mutate with their surroundings, whether it be radiation or somehow gold. We obviously haven't seen all of the mutations that are possible, and I don't think we ever will. But this mutation, if you can call it that, if it's something that's not supernatural, is very, very unique. a completely invulnerable bug is something that we have not seen before. We have seen impenetrable armor on some of the enemies in the game, such as the Dreadnoughts during their immunity phases, but all of them have some way that we can damage them, except for the Ghost. The Ghost is, strangely enough, not something that is able to interact with the environment in the same way as the bulk detonator or the Crassus. When it explodes, it does not leave behind a crater. It does not leave behind any form of radiation, doesn't leave behind any ethereal lighting or the like of that. It is simply something that somehow is able to stay around. It doesn't die. And while I think you think about ghosts enough, we can start getting into some completely different games here. But the Glyphid Exploder, I think, is the most mutated version of the Glyphids, and in the future, I worry what else we can see. The amount of glyph variants on the Glyphid Exploder is rivaled only by the Praetorian, and even that is still one less. It's scary, and I hope genuinely that we do not see anything else in the Glyphid Exploder variants. And if we do, well, rock and stone, I guess. If you liked this video, please leave it a like. Please subscribe if you want to. Dislike it if you dislike the video. Follow me over on Twitch. I have a link in the description. Next video, I want to actually discuss different variants of enemies. So I want to hear what you have to say. Do you think there is anything larger than a bulk detonator that we will ever see? What do you think it'll do? Do you think there are different variants of the Praetorian that we just haven't seen yet? Are there different enemies that you think are inevitable in the game? Pick some comments and we'll cover them in the next video. But for now, I'm going to head out, and I will see you guys when I see you. Peace.